saving our civilization or rebuilding it, whatever they are inspired by. Mohit Bhardwaj, for example, is building a Gurukul in Sonipat. Somebody called Chandruji, he walked into office one day, I think has given a talk as well. He wants to map Braj Kshetra's temples using SAR and LIDAR. It's a satellite imaging, okay, underground, under earth imaging. There is another organization which came in and have been doing studies in IITians, have been doing studies in reincarnation.
Inscriptions, large number of inscriptions exist in India. Existed is the more precise word. Many of them are destroyed perhaps now, and many of them are confirmed destroyed. Many of them, I estimate, are destroyed. So the British, before independence, estimated 93, about a lakh inscriptions in India, 93,000 to 97,000, something like that.
There are people like T.R. Ramesh who've given 20, 30 years, 20 years of their lives trying to fight for freeing Tamil Nadu temples from government control. There is people like Pavitra Srinivasan who are doing the 18 chapters of Bhagavad Gita in Bharatnatyam.
Manuscripts, which are basically village records, and each village would maintain a record of about 200 to 300 years. Today, our city corporations don't do that. Land records, land transfers, taxes, grants, pre-tax deductions. Every village had pre-tax deduction foundations that would take deductions, and then people would pay tax on it.
You could look at this as preservation of what we have. You could look at this as, also preservation. And this would be, fighting and reclaiming. Those are the words I use: reclaiming our civilization, preserving our civilization. Tomorrow at Sangam Talks, we complete 10 years of our existence from our first talk at Press Club with Sanjeev Sanyal on why Indian history needs to be rewritten. So it's been a long journey. Hindu Fund, of course, is barely a year and a half old, and the sankalp is to create 1,000 crore fund. We are going to be talking about why is it important civilizationally to build such a fund, and also give you a little background and what are the objectives with such a fund. Every time we have somebody from a grantee organization also attending, so that the people attending are sort of sure. It's our way of actually showing that your money that you donate is going to be used in the right places, and I'm not riding a private jet with the money that you donate to the Hindu Fund. So this is actually for both transparency. Sudarshan is having a good laugh. So this is actually for both transparency as well as exposing one of our grantees to you, so that you get, it's to invoke your interest and tell you the type of projects and people and organizations that we support. So we'll start with a little background. Like every time, all those people who are attending this for, more than once will probably be bored listening to the same thing, but that's my job. So Osho, the most beautiful words that I know to describe India, says, भारत कोई भूखंड नहीं है, न ही कोई राजनीतिक इकाई, न ऐतिहासिक तथ्यों का कोई टुकड़ा, न धन, न पद, न प्रतिष्ठा की पागल दौड़. भारत एक अभीप्सा है, एक प्यास सत्य को पा लेने की. What he's saying is that India is not only a geographic entity or a political entity, it is a search for truth. What he really means is that it's the values of Indians that sort of define India. And that's my sort of interpretation and how I take these words. It is these values, other than, yes, there is a sacred geography, but it's actually these values of these Indian-born religions, Hinduism as the foundation of all of them, which give it or maintains its sacredness. Pakistan, after all, is perhaps not sacred, in more ways than one. So, once again, for the background, why does the Hindu community, the majority in the country, probably, if you look at greater Hinduism, we are probably 82% of the country. Why do we feel threatened? Why are we constantly under attack? And the source of all of this comes from the Indian state, which emanates from the constitution, which actually accords equal status to all religions, irrespective of their practices, values, outcomes that they deliver in society. There's a sort of very interesting talk. I'm going to exit my screen for just a second. There's a nice video that we've just done at Sangam Talks, and this is actually to bust this whole idea that Allah and Ishwar are the same. You may want to look it up. Of course, there's an ad, but this is on Sangam Talks. It's doing really well. The talk is spreading quite a bit. Basis are whatever is well according to us. But what the point I was trying to make here is that this whole idea that Allah and Ishwar are the same, it's just, a difference of languages, and they all have the same great values and all of that. That's exactly what I'm challenging with the chief imam, Dr. Ilyasi, who we invited to have a podcast at Sangam Talks. Unfortunately, these dialogues are not happening in the country. And so people like him are spreading the same fake narrative around that this is only a difference of language and that Allah and Ishwar, Rabb, Vaheguru is all the same. That is not how things are. We know that Allah has a almost a sadistic tone to him or her, him, I guess. But that's not the case with our idea of God or Ishvara. I mean, because the Indian constitution does not inspect the values of these of alien religions, but strangely accords them the same status. And I just want to call out some of these values. The Indic values see divinity in all creation. There is a Aham Brahmasmi, or there is a Jiva which moves, and there is, of course, the idea of rebirth and karma phala. And because shastrarth or debate, because all the final truth cannot be known, so many paths is a natural outcome that we believe is an outcome of this, sort of emanates from this belief. We're a knowledge seeking civilization. There's no othering at the spiritual level, however much we may accuse the Hindu society of Jativad and whatever else. But look at the other side. There is not only Jativad and all of that, which is also true for both Christianity and Islam, but it splits the world into believers and infidels. A majority of the world, 600 or 650 crores, depending on whether Islam or Christianity, are going to be burning in hell because the others, they do not believe in their version of the true God. And hence there is also this missionary zeal to convert all populations of the world, which naturally will lead to conflict. But unfortunately, the Indian state, does not look at these differences, and that is where all our problems emanate from. All the problems that we face at this point in time. And that's exactly the situation that's there in Africa. It's a constant war between Christianity and Islam, with Africa being divided. So, I'm sorry. So entrenched is this idea that people are going to end up in hell, that Gandhi had to be posthumously baptized, by the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints in 1996, so that he could enter heaven. Rabindranath Tagore, no lesser than him, has gone and had said, and I quote, "There are only two religions on earth which have distinct enmity against all other religions. These are Christianity and Islam. They're not just satisfied with observing their own religions, but are determined to destroy all other religions." So I've asked this question, and I asked this to former Chief Justice Justice Keher once. If 80% Indians were to become Muslim, would India remain? So the question essentially is that, um, is Pakistan India in values? If we were to embrace the RSS dream of an Akhand Bharat, would merging both Pakistan, Bangladesh, India, and perhaps even Afghanistan into what is current India, would India remain? Would we truly be this glorious Bharat that we stand for, or would, with the dilution of values, would we lose the sacredness of this land? The latter is how I believe it is, and from this place is where we need to work upwards from. The Popular Front of India, in March 23, they were about 12 members were charge sheeted for a paper that was found with them called Towards Islamic Rule in India by 2047. It's a very extremely detailed document on how, on why, and how the army, police, judiciary, all large institutions of the country have to be infiltrated so that we can, then basically create a Shariat in India. And there is this lovely Maulvi Yasir Nadeem. He's from Deoband, just 100 kilometers from Delhi, which is where the Taliban's spiritual fountainhead is essentially. The foreign minister who came to India, he was escorted to Deoband to meet the their whatever masters of their theology. So I want to uh, you know make you hear a few things by what Yasir Nadeem has to say. He now stays in Chicago for several years, and here is what he has to say. Listen in.
We have to make our education system independent of this secularism, Islamization of knowledge. So we want to Islamize all sciences, whether it's biology or physics or medical science, and then you go to community and then society and to country. And that's how the entire nation is reformed. First move that I will do, I will abolish the constitution and I will establish the only logical and rational constitution, which is the Quran and the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Not only this, just a few days back, Lallan Top organized a debate between Javed Akhtar and another Maulvi. I don't know how this guy got involved, but he's become very famous because some people pulled out this particular thing he had to say. Listen in.
कौन सा अपराध बड़ा है? एक व्यक्ति तो मूर्ति पूजा कर रहा हुआ बैठा और एक व्यक्ति बैठा हुआ किसी बच्चे का बलात्कार कर रहा है. कौन सा अपराध बड़ा है? मूर्ति पूजा.
He's absolutely clear in his values, and this is a Maulvi who now has, pan-India following, of course, in Pakistan, Bangladesh, without a. So he is being asked by a questioner that one little girl is being raped, another is doing Murti Puja, which is the bigger crime according to Islam and Allah. He says Murti Puja. I love this guy. I love all these, they're not doing al taqiyya, at least they're absolutely clear about the values of Islam. Unfortunately, the Indian state just ignores them as, I don't know, fence sitters or something. This is the Joshua project. It's a project. It's not an organization, but a sort of a project amalgamation, jointly built by all church organizations around the world, and they've mapped all of the world's populations where the light of Jesus has not reached. India is the most unreached part of the world, and they've mapped each and every population group. So 7,200 people groups have been mapped in India, for instance. Small populations like, a few thousand people living in a remote forest area of Chhattisgarh, they would have mapped them. And there are Indian church organizations, for example, World Vision, which raises money in the name of children education, child education in India, is a part of this as well. You can actually go ask Grok or ChatGPT and it will give you these details. Arshdeep Singh Saini, he was arrested and has spent about a week or 10 days in jail. There is an FIR. We are in touch with him now. He was arrested because he called out Khalistanis, destroying Punjab, and that no one's acting against this Christian missionary. He actually sent out a tweet a few months ago, that sadly within 25 kilometers of Amritsar, the Golden Temple, the highest Christian conversions are happening. I had asked Grok, and about 23% of Amritsar, Gurdaspur district and Amritsar have been converted to Christianity. This is not an uncommon sight, turban wearing, hallelujah singing, I don't know, Sikh Christians, I guess. There is George Punaiya, who actually has gone on record in front of thousands of people in Kanyakumari. And he said in Tamil that we wear shoes. Why? Because the impurities of Bharat Mata should not contaminate us. And this is the same man Rahul Gandhi was lectured by on how Jesus is the real God during his Bharat Jodo Yatra. Of course, our temples, most parts of the country, especially in the south of India, are not in our control, and so we can't use our money. In fact, with the Ram temple in Ayodhya, which is also where politicians sit, and Hindu leaders sort of sit, and unfortunately, our money gone to the temple to the deity is not being used for spreading dharma, spreading Ram's work, or supporting temples and supporting the purpose of temples. But a cancer hospital is now being built, one of the largest in India. I mean, I'm all for building hospitals and whatever, schools and all of that. Unfortunately, the purpose of a temple and the objectives of having a temple is not being furthered by these politicians and self-appointed Hindu leaders sitting on temple boards. There are other battles like Islamophobia. There is actually a special envoy to combat Islamophobia. We now have Mamdani, who's written to Umar parents. I mean, the Delhi riots man who wanted to cut the chicken neck and cut off things, and so I mean, this is like every day, every week, there are battles being put on us. Of course, there is all this Ambedkarite movement, which my colleague Sufia Pathan actually says that the idea was to unshackle marginalized populations, but actually we are not unshackling. We are handing out weapons to these sections of society to use against each other. Very aptly, she says that. On the Islamic side of things, I believe we are heading towards a civil war, possibly another partition, and things are. There's a low-grade civil war all over the country. Those of you who are not from Delhi, or more in regions around Delhi, you would know that there was a Red Fort blast, but you may not know that 2,900 kilos of ammonium nitrate was caught, several hundred kilos or whatever of RDX. There was resin extracted. Resin is more toxic than cyanide. The idea was to put resin in laddus in Lucknow and Hyderabad somewhere, so that lakhs can be killed at the same time. And of course, the killer of the suicide bomber in the Red Fort bombing actually recorded a video where he defended and eulogized in very beautiful words. He was very calm in front of the camera when he recorded that suicide bombing is misunderstood. He actually said. And so, I mean, there's a low-grade civil war already going on. It's just a matter of time when it will erupt and become large-scale. So, I mean, obviously, the large long-term solution is to revamp the design of the Indian state, which is a very long battle. And I know our goals are right now only Viksit Bharat. I'm all for it. I'm a Modi Bhakt. He's the only person who's given audacious goals to the country. We've become the fourth largest economy just 2 or 3 days back. I mean, just fantastic work. I wish we had him as a prime minister when we didn't have these civilizational challenges in our face. But Viksit Bharat is not enough at this point. I have a few questions. In 2047, will Ram Navami Shobha Yatras, the stone pelting on them in every major city of India, will it stop? Will Christianity stop its whole harvesting in Punjab to Tamil Nadu to Eastern Godavari, the Godavari belt? And will we have a fair and fast delivery system? Will we have a fearless society? Where Ram Rajya is actually a fearless society. Is that an objective we are pursuing? It's a society which puts freedom of speech. A Dhobi can come and say anything to the monarch. And the monarch applies the same rules for himself that he applies for the rest of society. But here, can I criticize Muhammad just as Ram is criticized every day without having my head off my shoulders? So these are objectives which are not stated by the Indian state, and so a Viksit Bharat in 2047 is absolutely not the only goal that at least I'm willing to accept. There have to be other civilizational goals for what India is going to be, what she's going to be in 2047. I believe it should be a state that protects, preserves, promotes its homegrown knowledge systems, traditions, cultures, and values. By this, I really mean a Ram Rajya, Hindu Rashtra, Hindu Rajya, Hindu Swarajya, whatever name you want to give it, Dharma Rajya is what we call it. But this is a long-term goal. Perhaps it can't be done without serious political will. So what are people doing? What do we do? And obviously there are people, wonderful people all over the country who are at great personal sacrifice, are doing what they can, inspired by what part of saving our civilization or rebuilding it, whatever they are inspired by. Mohit Bhardwaj, for example, is building a Gurukul in Sonipat. There is a Shakyayan Shakha of the Rig Veda, and maybe Sudarshan can talk a little more about it. And he and another friend of him, both of whom we fund, are teaching, are creating a new generation of brahmacharis who are learning this shakha. We don't fund Ashwini ji, but people like him are, fighting cases like recognition of gurukuls at par with madrasas and missionary schools. Pretty sad state of our nation state at this point. Ravi Ranjan ji has been the pioneer in fighting the halal mafia. Of course, later Harinder Sikka also joined in, and the result is that now people like Priyank Kanungu has is challenging the entire Indian Railways to clearly serve jhatka and halal meat. If they want to continue to serve halal, then they have to look at minority rights of the Sikhs also, for example, or the others Hindus who do not want to eat halal. So things like that are happening. Air India, for example, has removed the label of halal from their meat items. All of this because of people like Raviji. Vishnu Shankar Jain, absolutely one of the biggest lawyers of our country. Endless number of cases. At last count, in the last 10-15 years, there were 180 cases on the list between his father and him that I saw on cases that they're fighting across the country. Kashi Vishwanath, uh, most of you may know, but those who do not, this Shivaling, and there's a pond around it. This is on the first floor or something like that of this masjid, which was the original Kashi Vishwanath Gyanvapi temple. And Muslims for 500 years had been doing wuzu, which means washing their feet around the Shivling. This was stopped by Vishnu Shankar Jain. Okay, so we have to have massive gratitude to people like him. There are people in internationally fighting, say, Hindu phobia, for example. Scottish Parliament passed a bill that Hindu phobia also is a real thing, and that they are going to measure it, and so on and so forth. The brave people like Sahil, many people said, "Oh, but he's become a Muslim again." Oh, yeah, but please go and check his Twitter handle, check his videos. He's still taking on imams, even though now he wears a topi. There are people like Vimal and his trust, Ugra Narsimha Trust, which finds temples in such states. They find it in this state and not absolutely gone because of the minority 10-15% Hindu population in this district, Mallapuram of Kerala, who still old women, 90-year-old, would come and light a diya every day without a deity in the temple. The deity would be lying in the village pond, broken and thrown during the Mopla riots or earlier Tipu Sultan's raids on Konkan. And Vimal turns them into temples like these. There are 16 projects, 16th project currently going on. I think 11 or 12 are completed, 3, 4, 5 are still going on. And he keeps adding basis how much money he has. Nupur Sharma, Rahul Roshan have used international standards of journalism to document hate against Hindus. This is since January 2024. This screenshot is old. This probably now runs into 6,000s or something like that. And you see, unless we do such documentation and only rage on Twitter about, oh, look at what is happening in Bangladesh, no international journal is going to take us seriously. It is only platforms like these that get picked up by international journalists when they look at data, when they scrutinize it, and why are they classifying them as a hate crime or as a leading to murder, or what is undecided, all of that this is the professionalism, this is the institution building we need, which most Hindu organizations unfortunately in the last 75 years have not done. There are people like T.R. Ramesh who've given 20, 30 years, 20 years of their lives trying to fight for freeing Tamil Nadu temples from government control. There is people like Pavitra Srinivasan who are doing the 18 chapters of Bhagavad Gita in Bharatnatyam because her guru asked her to do so. There is Parvati ji also because of her guru here is building the first Baul ashram in Bengal. Why is this significant? Because Baul is one of the most spiritual Eastern India, or maybe located around Bengal, a little bit Jharkhand area. It's a dying tradition now, like many other traditions in the country. It's a Vaishnava tradition. And Parvati ji is now training students who come both from India, internationally, all the kids around. And so this, things like these need to be supported. Parvati ji used to do 3, 4, 5 international trips every year just to pay salaries of the ashram. I had to one day ask her that you will not do this anymore. You want to spread Baul and Indian spirituality, by all means travel 10 times a year. But you will not fight for paying salaries anymore. So since then, we've been sort of paying the ashram salaries and things like that. So there are two broad goals if we want to save the civilization. One is to make Hinduism missionary. You want to find out more about this, please go to YouTube. There are some videos by me, and there's also many other podcasts on HyperQuest and Upward and many other places where I talk at great length about this. This is only about the 1,000 crore Hindu Fund. So how do we want to run this? We want to make liberal grants to our grantee organizations, trust them by default, evaluate them over time. Just like I will not ride private jets and hop around the world like Greta Thunberg. Our grantees also don't do the same thing. They spend their own money, they're frugal, they may be inefficient, but that doesn't make them criminals who misuse money intentionally, right? So I am not for over making things very efficient and saying, oh, I'm going to teach you how to run things. I am not for it. Even if things are inefficient, even if some money is wasted, it's absolutely okay because it's being wasted, if it is being wasted in the right hands, going to the right people for being inefficient. It's absolutely okay. This is how we need to behave. Hindus have to change their mental switches of how we donate, who we donate to, and how many questions do we ask. It is humiliating for people when they are asked questions on propriety. It's indignifying. And I've heard this over and over, especially, when a lot of NRIs come to India, they come, in fact, to me as well. They come to my office and teach me both strategy and professionalism, how they are so great at strategy and how they've done great things in their corporate careers. And, well, so, um, the current priorities that I'm working on, yes, 1,000 crores is the large dream, but current priorities that I'm working on are a legal endowment fund, inscriptions and manuscripts endowment fund, and a spiritual infrastructure, and then general ongoing recurring donations. These three I'm really, really working towards. I think we're getting the first big breakthrough in creating this. I mean, the first large commitment for 2026 financial year, 2026-27, has come in from somebody from Hyderabad who's going to contribute very, very significantly, 50% to this, and probably 30-40% of 20% something of this fund. So that's going to be a really big breakthrough. Hopefully we'll ride on that success and move to the others as well. Sudarshan today is here to talk about our manuscripts and inscriptions initiative. I'm taking way too much time, but I will leave it to him to talk about this. Spiritual infra is all about gurukuls, people who are teaching the Shakha and Shakha, for example. On Sudarshan's recommendation, we've started funding another gurukul. Now it stands at people teaching Vedic gurukuls at probably about 3 or 4 initiatives that we are funding at this point. So these are broad things, right? You could look at this as preservation of what we have. You could look at this as also preservation, and this would be fighting and reclaiming. That those are the words I use: reclaiming our civilization, preserving our civilization. So I'm not going to go into too much detail, but for example, we want to get all FCRA data published. This government has stopped publishing FCRA data since 2021. We filed an RTI, and the response is that, oh, there is no provision of publishing information on where is the source of the money and where is the destination. So we've stopped publishing. The Congress government was publishing this data openly. And so we know that the last 2021 perhaps was 27,000 crores came into the country. Most of this is from Christian sources to Christian destinations. But so we are now going to be taking our own government to court so that we publish this data and eventually do things like banning entirely FCRA. We're going to go after these kind of things. C.S. Yogananda is here. He's making the Nilakanthiya Mahabharat, which is a critical edition from the Parampara perspective, making it searchable, recorded. Some 200-300 slokas are missing from the critical edition of Bori, and things like that. So there's a lot of Advaita Sharada work, incredible work that he's done in the last 20 years or so. Under Sudarshan is going to talk about it. We are doing the Epigraphy Indica in Karnataka. Go Google for Epigraphy Indica and you will still find PDFs. In 75 years, this was published in 1886. And in 75 years of independence, nobody has bothered to make this digitally available. Which means what? Which means Unicode, searchable, reference, well referenced, meta tags in place, and so on and so forth. So it's a shame, it's an absolute shame on this Indian nation state. So this is much larger. I keep saying I'll update this, but I end up not updating this, and Anubhav doesn't remind me to update this. This is now about 150 organizations, and this number is way more as well. This is probably about 20, I don't know, 23 crores or something that we spent, and also the recurring is much larger. I'm not the only one. Yes, these people are not very active, but some of them are. Vijaya, for example, is an absolute backer and we talk regularly. So is probably Anand. We two are regulars. Swami Ved Tatvananda and Sudarshan. He's also on the Hindu Fund governing board. He's also a retired army officer. So all great people in whose name I'm sort of also collecting money, who actually also trust me that I'm not flying jets around the world. In the end, Sudarshan corrected my Sanskrit here, but essentially, Sukhasya moolam dharmaha, dharmasya moolam artha, dharma ka mool arth hai. We have to remember this. We have to loosen our pockets, decide a percentage that we are going to give every month to any of these Hindu organizations. You can pick and choose. We are a matchmaking organization, or you can give to the general corpus, the general fund or corpus. We are making progress, but it's sort of very slow. For example, we started this year with 15 donors who were donating regularly, grew to 21, fell to 13, 8. I don't know why people lose motivation. Do they lose trust, or do they just think, oh, pata nahi kahan paisa ja raha hai? So I mean, this is really not helping. The numbers are also dwindling. It starts with great numbers and then falls to this. It's pretty pathetic, Of course, there are some big donors who've come in, so the number is probably 2.3 crores. But of course, we've spent way more, and I will probably just also show you that where does the money go? So the money goes into this is a little more. There are some numbers we can't publish, but anyways, even if it were just this, all these are numbers that you can call up any one of these organizations and find out, did you get this money? So you could, okay, Noel Piravi is actually MIDF, which is Sudarshan here himself. You could call up these legal guys in Maitreya. You could call up Swami Ved Tatvananda in Ramakrishna Mutt Foundation. You could call Chetan Pandey in E-Gangotri and ask him if he received this. I saw Ashok Dumlur coming in. I forget his E-Sahitya. He's here. You could call him and find out if he received this money, and maybe he can say that yes or no he received. So this is the transparency we work with, and so any money you give will go in places like this. I want to pause here. Sudarshan, over to you, please. Please take your time. I've eaten into
Thanks, Rahul.
7 minutes of your time, but
So I wanted to also share a couple of things that what about MIDF and invite people to ask questions, right? So I was a telecommunications engineer, worked in India, US, and a few other places. And I grew up reading, studying English medium, not having good awareness of our history, real history, didn't know much about our culture. And I grew up with this prejudice that Indians, especially our ancestors, were very poor in documentation, and how wrong I was. So, what happened was in the last 12 years, since I retired from earning money, I started studying Sanskrit. Went to Sanskrit Bharati, learned spoken Sanskrit. That kind of opened the gates, and I started suddenly accessing the textual heritage of India, the documentation. And then I did my MA in Karnataka Sanskrit University, and later on a PhD in Indian history of science. During this last 11, 12 years journey, I actually figured out that we have a huge amount of documentation done by our ancestors in many forms. Many of you would have heard of manuscripts, right? The government estimates goes till about 3 crores. Vivek Debray, in his last speech when he worked with Namami National Manuscripts Mission, he estimated 3 crores manuscripts in India. I have a suspicion there may be more, because outside the already government cataloged repositories, catalogs, lists, new repositories keep coming up. These are completely outside, and they seem to be far bigger than what are formally known to exist in well-known libraries. Okay, just for an example, I grew up thinking until a few years ago that the largest manuscripts repository library in India is in Kashi, Saraswati Mahal Library in the Sampurnananda University. This library was founded by the British Indologists 150, 160 years ago. And they are supposed to have 1.25 lakhs, 1.25 lakh manuscripts. I went there, figured out they don't have 1.25 lakhs. They only have 93,000. Where are the remaining? We have no idea. It's very hard to track where these things go. And then it came as a shock to me that here is the one library in Gujarat, privately owned by a Jain organization, Jain Mutt, called Koba Tirth, having almost 4 lakh manuscripts. And they have collected this only in the last 12 years. Only in the last 12 years. This was shocking. And even it was shocking to them as well. They didn't know these many are there just around in Gujarat, Rajasthan area, lying around in villages, village houses. They've collected those manuscripts. Same thing goes with LD Institute. So the world's top 2 or 3 manuscript repositories are not those that were known to us even 10 years ago. 10 years ago, ये मालूम नहीं था कि अभी world number 1, number 2, number 3 repositories are actually in Gujarat, in around Gandhinagar, Ahmedabad area. So we don't know how many exist. Now coming to manuscript is something that is very well known. Besides this, I didn't also know that inscriptions, large number of inscriptions exist in India. Existed is the more precise word. Many of them are destroyed perhaps now, and many of them are confirmed destroyed. Many of them, I estimate, are destroyed. So the British, before independence, estimated about a lakh inscriptions in India, 93,000 to 97,000, something like that. Out of these lakh inscriptions, these are basically stone or copper plate inscriptions, okay? And out of these, they look like this. The copper plate is here on the right side, Sri Shailam copper plate, and the stone inscription is on the left side. It is on a pillar, stone pillar. Below that is in the middle, Yukti Bhasha is a manuscript. Just wanted to show you some pictures. These inscriptions, out of the 93,000, 97,000, only about 22,000 are published. 18,000 were published during British time, and from there looks like we have taken it up to 22,000 after all these 75, 80 years. And that's it. And even those published, like Rahul said, are lying in PDFs, which are, we can't, it's not so easy to access it. Even historians don't read this often, other than the well-known inscriptions. Very few research is happening looking at those. Even with 93,000, we end up being the most documented civilization in the world. Now I hear lately that thousands of inscriptions are coming out which are outside these 93,000. So the new estimate was 3 lakhs. Okay. MD Srinivas in Chennai told me, looks like Sudarshan, we have to revise our estimate. It's not 1 lakh anymore. It's probably 3 lakhs. Wow. My jaw dropped. And after that, Rahul introduced me to a retired, not retired, an airlines pilot, Philippine Airlines pilot in Manila. He's not a Filipino guy. He's from Jodhpur. Okay, Arihant Shekhawat. So he used to work in Philippines as an airlines pilot. He saw how seriously the Filipino people take the few stone inscriptions they find, and he quit his job overnight, came back to his village, and started roping up a team of volunteers to go and survey undocumented stone inscriptions, ancient inscriptions. And he estimates just in Rajasthan, 1.5 lakh undocumented inscriptions, unknown inscriptions. My God, and what would this take our 3 lakh estimate, which was, people were scared if they're not conservative enough, but it's far more. We really are a highly documented civilization. And this documentation culture suddenly stopped about 200, 250 years ago due to the ravages that are, we being a civilization that was wounded. We stopped this. And again, there is this work of Bajaj and Srinivas in Chennai, where they're studying pre-colonial manuscripts, which are basically village records. And each village would maintain a record of about 200 to 300 years. Today, our city corporations don't do that. Land records, land transfers, taxes, grants, pre-tax deductions. Every village had pre-tax deduction foundations that would take deductions, and then people would pay tax on it. So a lot of these very, very vibrant, advanced, sophisticated economic activity is documented in these village records. Most of them are destroyed. 99% of them are destroyed during the last 250 years, but few of them remain in Chennai. And there were a couple of surveys that were done by British officers, like Buchanan survey and stuff. So those are well conserved, those manuscripts. These are basically palm leaf manuscripts containing village records. So Srinivas and Bajaj are working on it. And the lot of our understanding of history crashes when you read them, because these are true evidences. Majority of our history looks like were created by just somebody's ooha. They kind of extended dotted lines, and poor guys, I mean, they didn't have a lot of evidences, or maybe they had some conspiracy theories, I don't know, but it's not very reliable. And you read these pre-colonial records, that in those manuscripts, village records, everything changes. What today in Chennai, in Tamil Nadu, Parayar, or what is called as scheduled jati, they had the largest land ownership in villages. Now, how did this work? What was really happening? It looks like they were the arakshak, they were the police for the villages, and nobody othered them. This is just one small bit that, to me, growing up as a English educated guy, I was like seeing stars. Arey, kya ho raha hai with this evidence? So there is a lot of such evidence. So it's our responsibility to conserve, digitize, and make this record available to everybody. So that's what we do. We hope to do in MIDF, right? So in MIDF, we have basically a three-pronged idea. Very simply put, we want to build an archival platform. Can we want to build an Anuji, can you see these 3 points on the screen? Okay.
Yes.
Number one, we want to have a open access archival platform where digital records of all the manuscripts, inscriptions, I'm using the word manuscripts and inscriptions loosely because everybody can understand it. They also include copper plates. India had a tradition of writing things on copper plate and giving it to others. We also had a tradition of pre-colonial records, paper records. We have a lot of huge lakhs and lakhs of paper records, like for example, during the Peshwe rule, during Maharajas, royal families have it. And we are not even looking at them, and or very little is being looked at. And the digital copies, that means there are two kinds of digital, right? There will be raster copies. You take photographs, high resolution photographs. Secondly, we will also have to Unicode convert it. That is text to, we have to convert it to actual searchable text and metadata and stuff. So for archiving all this today, there are organizations that are already doing. So MIDF is a new organization, just a few months old. But before this, the Hindu Network Fund, primarily Rahul Dewan himself, in his personal capacity, has been funding many organizations, okay, including, for example, E-Gangotri and E-Sahitya Foundation. And Chetan Pandey of E-Gangotri, with enormous personal sacrifices, giving up his software job, travels all over India, including Nepal. And he, it's in a way amazing to see his energy and motivation, and but it's also sad to see his personal sacrifices he does to make this happen, where he identifies repositories. He convinces the owners of those repositories that he will make it public. I don't know how he convinces. I have tried doing it and I have not been successful all the time. So he's doing this. So Hindu Network Fund has been funding organizations like this. And even E-Sahitya, Ashok Domblur is here from E-Sahitya. Enormous personal sacrifice, goes around the place. Karnataka primarily, also other places, and scans, documents, catalogs, manuscripts, especially from libraries that have not been looked at by the mainstream. So, MIDF inherits and tries to organize these activities that Hindu Network Fund and Rahul Dewan were already doing it. Second thing we want to do after an archival platform is we want to also come up with standards, create committees of experts for digitizing, standards for cataloging, standards for interoperability. We should be, even the world today is not fully equipped with what standards to follow here, especially for Indian texts and Indian evidences. Number three, like we want to continue and expand the grant giving capacity of Rahul Dewan, okay, and raise funds for this. So we want to, this year we hope to raise 5 crores, and that way we want to make amazing inroads in all these three activities. Presently, the grants are going to the three groups. E-Gangotri, which is presently doing scanning work in untapped, unknown individual archives, manuscript archives in Nepal, especially. And E-Sahitya, who are right now working in Melkote in southern Karnataka. And many of these manuscript libraries, right? Like I told you about Kashi, and like I told you about Kobathir, most places, when new initiatives are done to go and catalog them, figure out, clean them, do conservation work on this. For example, there was a conservation work that was done by another organization in Mysore Oriental Research Institute, where I thought we have about 24,000 manuscripts. But when they actually untied those bundles and saw those books, now we have actually not 24,000, but 74,000 books. Okay, maybe they didn't know about some of those books, or maybe new books were donated to this repository. And the nation didn't know this for more than half a century. So even E-Gangotri and E-Sahitya are finding a lot of new things in all their efforts. The other, on inscriptions, there is a small team, Pratnakirti in Dharwad, which is an in-house team, 6 people, trying to use AI and OCR and digitize the Epigraphy, Indica, and Karnataka books that Rahul mentioned.
Dr. Piyush Tageja is here, and he says that I just bought Bulti Ramayana. I think it's a good thing. We should support it. How can I help this fund? Sure, we'll support it. How can you help this fund is by donating. I urge people to set a percentage of their monthly income and donate without asking hundreds of questions. You could donate to a specific organization. You could route your money via the Hindu Fund, Hindu Network Foundation, or donate directly. If you're inspired by Sudarshan's work, for example, our MIDF is it's called the Manuscripts and Inscriptions Digitization Foundation. I love the name, but the official name is Nool Piravi Foundation, which is a Tamil word, and Sudarshan can share more why that is called so. But the idea is that if you like what Sudarshan is doing here and his team, then you could donate directly. We will still claim that as much as we can that Hindu Fund was able to do this matchmaking because we want to increase credibility and so on and so forth. Hopefully this answers your question. www.hindu.fund has the razor pay, the bank details, QR code, all of that there. And also my colleague Neeraj, if he's here, can actually share some QR codes and things like that here as well. Also, we will be sharing, Anubhav, if you can, the ability to join the Shubh Chintak group on WhatsApp. It's a non-noisy group. We only send 3 or 4 messages per week. And it's a broadcast only, so people can only react and all. It's not noisy at all. There are about 600-700 people, and as we pass the 1024, we'll form another group. But these are Shubh Chintak, which means people who are sort of, want to be associated with the Hindu Fund, donors or not. So please do join that. Anubhav is going to put the voluntary joining link on
Yes, sir.
the
Yes, yes.
Shankar Bhate says, Rahulji, I wish to share some points. We need to develop Hindu identity, Hindu as a brand, universal logo, Vedic prayer. Okay. Sure. I can't do anything about it. I don't want to be the one to address it. Somebody else needs to. Maybe you should take up the lead and do that. Hindu economic model to be some industry profession mainly handled by non-Hindus, right? Okay, but once again, can't solve all problems. The problem we are here to solve is to raise 1,000 crores. Hindu missionary model, how to do this exactly? Well, there is a talk on this. I'm talking extensively about this, and there are whole talks about this. You may want to go and look up on Sangam Talks. Look for my name, you'll find them. There's some notes by Sajal. One suggestion, there are many people who want to learn and get knowledge from these manuscripts. Can we have YouTube sessions for these manuscripts from Sanskrit Vedic teachers? It would help if these two spread fast and get money. So
Yeah, there are, Sajalji, there are lots of such YouTubes on Sangam Talks, on Atharva Forum, on many such. So there are large numbers. So this work, I'm so happy that in India, the spreading of knowledge that are there in these manuscripts have really taken off. Okay, so on YouTube, you can look at a lot of those videos. Now, I would also encourage you. There are many small research centers that are working on this. You can contact the IKS division to know which are these centers. You can go to their website. There are lots of centers. For example, where I come from Bangalore, I worked for 6 years in one such research center called Center for Ancient History and Culture, presently headed by an octogenarian scholar and scientist called R.N. Iyengar. So every year they look at new manuscripts and publish information in them. Lots of YouTube videos on that also. You can support such research institutions across India. You can be an organizer. You can be a coordinator. You can catch some of them, tell them, hey, I am there to help you, and become a volunteer.
Anulal just sent me a WhatsApp saying that Hindu Fund is probably like a Shark Tank for Hindu Fund for dharmic projects. Well, not people pitch and we pretty liberally write checks wherever we can, and so there's been some very interesting pitch that has come in from an organization. Somebody called Chandruji. He walked into office one day. I think has given a talk as well. He wants to map Braj Kshetra's temples using SAR and LIDAR. This is satellite imaging, okay, underground, under earth imaging. There is another organization which came in and have been doing studies in IITians, have been doing studies in reincarnation. I mean, brilliant. I've not been able to fund both of these, lack of money, but the earliest possible, I'm going to fund projects of these guys because these things have to move forward. right? Nobody knows about them. The only, there's one person who, with his own money, had done some satellite imaging of Dwarka. It's a talk on Sangam Talks, picking up work from where I'm forgetting the name of the scholar who had done the underwater Dwarka.
Yes, sir, Rao.
S.R. Rao, Professor S.R. Rao's work. He's taken it up. And so very, very few people do this, right? In India, you don't hear this, but there's a beautiful documentary on the tomb of Chinggis Khan, it's called. So people went and found out where Chinggis Khan exists in Mongolia. Now we don't even find our temples, and so Braj Kshetra, this man is trying to raise 33 lakhs is the proposal. Uh, I don't have that at this point, but we'll find the money to fund him. I've promised him first week of February. We'll see how.
Aditya Kumar Pandey is asking, what is the role and impact of IKS division in this domain? This is not our job to review at this time to review the government organization. See, a government, I butted in to mention, government has its own limitation. We will have to work with them. They will do their part. So IKS division is doing some decent work, looks like. As an outsider, I can see that they're doing some work. They're putting in some amount of what do you call it, adrenaline into the system in their own way. But privately, a lot of us have to ramp up. A lot of private funding to private research centers, university research centers, all that have to come up.
At the same time, I must say it's very poorly funded by the government of India. So IKS division may itself be doing great work, but if you don't fund an organization well, uh, you know, it's terrible. So also people may want to ask your opinion on Gyan Bharatam mission. I don't know if you want to say anything, Sudarshan, or stay politically correct.
No, it's still a new organization. We have met them. We are very happy with what they plan to do. We introduced ourselves. We hope to work with them. And as a private organization to work with Gyan Bharat Mission, we are sure we will complement what they're doing. Because there is space for 10 MIDFs in India, maybe more.
Right. We actually hope that it can become a public-private partnership, and MIDF or Nool Piravi is seen like a private player, or it's a non-profit, but like a private player which is actually solving the same problem. So instead of the government solving it, I believe that the Gyan Bharatam mission and the government should fund organizations like MIDF instead of trying to do all that they do on their own. We'll be far more efficient than them.
I think I got part of the answers about how we can volunteer or anything. The funding part is one, but also to get directly involved in this kind of work. So that was really.
I don't want to discount the funding part. I know it
Yeah.
always gets discounted. People always reach out to me. Yeah, money is one thing, but how can we help? I mean, you can't do much. I mean, for example, in an MIDF, you can't do much. Finally, these guys, Sudarshan and his team, have to run it, and they need money. If they have
Yeah.
money, they can hire people and do whatever work. And volunteering, honestly, there is an upward swing in emotion and whatever after hearing things like this. And a lot of people say, I want to volunteer. I've been seeing this in Sangam Talks for 10 years. People write emails after every wonderful talk, and then they lose momentum after 2 weeks. I just showed you, right? People donate 5 lakhs, 21, 31 people, and then it'll be down to 17 after 2 months. I mean, this is just the frivolousness of human emotion. Right? There is no consistency, and everything is achieved. Everybody has to pay salaries. MIDF has to pay salaries every month when they hire. We have a professional team on board. There is Dr. Kayur, an epigraphist, who's actually leading the team. We have to pay salaries every month. So finally, we need money.
One question regarding the funding thing. Are you looking for larger amounts of donations or maybe large, small amounts? It's like crowdfunding or like big donors?
Corpus is going to be built by large amounts, but the daily, monthly expense will have to be funded by small amounts with large number of people. But once again, I'm going to urge that I funded Sangam Talks for the last 10 years before I sold my business by putting a 7% of my business profits on this. I used to do that with my salary, and I didn't earn much more than a lot of people here. So it is just a matter of putting a discipline about donating without asking questions, without falling to our own greed. Define a percentage and just give
Yeah,
every
that's
month.
true. That's true. Yeah.
The
Thank
only
you.
way to get past our own greed. And I am like
Yeah.
that as well. But just because I put this rule, so it goes away
Yeah.
every month, and
Yeah.
then whatever is left, you work with that. I mean, Divyanshu is asking a question: how can we volunteer for funding part, organizing event, meeting corporates, businessmen, etc.? Well, if you are well networked in your society, in your community, then yes, you could organize groups and um, at your home, you could organize a private session, get in 25 people. Neeraj is here. We'll be happy to do a session just for your family and friends, exactly like this. Or you could get them here to this forum, to this webinar. That would be the easiest. Call them to this webinar. We will just share the PDF of Hindu Fund. Neeraj, Anubhav, somebody, can we share it?
I'll do that.
Is it on the
Yes,
website?
yes, we can. It is on the. I'm just sharing it.
You could distribute it to your friends. It's a small booklet, very small, 16 pages, and it actually gives you a very good idea of what the Hindu Fund is about and why is it important. Very, very simple, easy to read. As a small note also, I highly recommend you join the WhatsApp broadcast channel. We keep posting all of this over there regularly.